What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is Brenden and Daniel, and this is the Jersey Number Runners. So, yeah, big day yesterday. Very interesting, fascinating. I think that all drafts are fascinating. If you're a sports guy, like the NFL draft is coming up, it's going to be fascinating. Fascinating. NBA draft, same thing. Fantasy draft, fantasy baseball, especially. Baseball is an interesting sport, Daniel, because it's so deep. There's so many players. It's such a deep game comparatively to the other sports. I mean, football, you can make the argument that's a pretty damn deep draft as well, but
Not as much.
baseball, especially in fantasy football, no, not even close. Not even close. Think of it this way. I think fantasy football, if I remember correctly, I think you roster like 12 guys or something like that. Fantasy baseball is 23. It's literally double the game.
Is that what football is, the entire team?
Yeah, because you have QB. It depends on what league you're in, but QB, wide receiver, running back, tight end, utility, defense, right. Kicker. Usually you have 3 bench spots. So I think it's 13. I mean, it depends on the league. Some leagues have 3 wide receivers and utility spots or whatever, but that's typically kind of the build. So yeah, it's literally double the roster that you have in a managed compared to football. So especially when it comes to auction, no parameters off. It's not like you're just fed the number 1 pick and things go from there. It's whatever goes, man, goes. There's unlimited combinations that can be made, in my opinion, comparatively. Literally whatever you want to do. So I guess before we go ahead, give your thoughts.
No, I mean, absolutely. It's the most flexibility. You can let your imagination run wild. But like anything, you have to be responsible, because you can end up screwing yourself in a way that, maybe you don't realize until the end. So,
twofold.
There are
twofold. If you're too responsible, same thing.
You took the words out of my mouth, as people are going to see. You can be, almost too judicious and end up, it's like a friend said to me, there's a great line, right? I mean, money, you can't take it with you. When you die, you can't take it with you. You say if you end a fantasy draft with the most amount of money, it just means you're the biggest idiot in the room. Like somebody may have been last night.
That's good. Yeah, no, I guess before we're going to show you our teams, we're going to dive into it. The outcome. What do you give yourself as a grade? We haven't really even discussed this.
Ooh, fuck.
I have something. It's all right. I have something in my mind, but
I would give myself a B.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking C plus, just because I know how pissed you were that you left money in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably the golden rule about auction. Whatever sport, you don't want to be sitting there with money in the bank.
No.
Especially when you passed on players that you're like.
Yeah, that's why. It's not because of the outcome that came on paper. Like, we're grading the draft. I would give it a C plus.
I'll say this: the irony is that, objectively speaking, and when we show people our teams, and you can even show some other teams, I actually feel that I have, and I said this to you earlier, the best all-around balanced team in the league. And I feel I will be competitive on both sides of the ledger, strongly. However, it could have been even better.
Yeah.
And when you're playing auction, it is incumbent upon you to make it what it is you thought you had on paper or in your head. Make that as realized as possible. And if you're leaving money in the bank, something went wrong.
Yeah,
and there is a hole. There is a hole on my team, and we will show people that hole. It's probably the area where I think the most restructuring or salvaging can be made. And I'll just say it: the bullpen. But it's very volatile. It's a very risky place.
And I'll say this as well. The one thing I was thinking, if you had Sal Perez on your team, Daniel's a big Salvador Perez guy.
Oh, he hit a home run yesterday, folks. By the way, in spring training.
I think if you put that money and you had Sal Perez, even if you had Darno and he was utility on the bench, here it is, man. I mean, basically, I guess we'll start off with your team. Here it is. I mean, so Daniel went into the draft And he said to me, I mean, obviously you have a lot of thoughts. You know, we have our strategies the day before, then the day of the draft, you wake up, everything goes out the window. You know, okay, what's really going to happen here? And Daniel texted me, he's like, yeah, man, starting pitching. Starting pitching. I was like, okay, all right. You know, I leave.
Why don't you scroll down, show them the whole pitching staff?
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, there you go. He said, I'm going starting pitching, and you know, he really wanted Lucas Giolito. I know Walker Buehler was a thought in the draft. He got pretty pricey, and kind of took that off the table. But at the end of the day, you know, one of those horses got away. That's what we're trying to say here. Daniel was like, I firmly believe you need to go 4 deep.
40.
40. That's what he says. He's like, if you're gonna go starting pitching, and this is, we play a rotisserie league, so every category is measured across the whole year, and then they're gonna assign you a point value for your cumulative stats on the season. So it's not like you can just get lucky, you know, head to head. You just play some guys when, you know, their team is hurt that week or something like that, or you just happen to just maneuver through a couple head to head things. This is, if you have the best team and you manage your team the best throughout the season, you should theoretically get the most value based on the points.
Yeah, let's just be clear about that for people listening. You're gonna have 2 choices: rotisserie and head to head. Head to head is trash. Why would I put together a great team and then risk it in a 1-week playoff where I may have the better players who maybe get benched that week because their teams
maybe we have 1 start. You started with only 1 start that week.
And that happens. You may have starters who get put on a pitch count, an innings limit in the last week. They may skip a turn in the rotation, and you may miss some dude. Last year, Corbin Burns, they were skipping starts towards the end of the year. Let's just say a guy gets injured. He happens to get injured at the end of the year. Well, all the good work he did for you for 5 months or 5.5 months is down the drain, essentially.
Yeah.
Because if he's a pillar of your team, and if he's a pillar of your rotation, if it's a starting pitcher, you're in trouble. So I'm not taking that risk. I'm going to make sure that every strikeout, every stolen base from the people I believe in, like I said to you, I want to get every piece of meat on the bone. That is what rotisserie does for you.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you're scored on runs. You're scored on a batting average, runs, home runs, RBIs, and stolen bases on the offensive side of the baseball. You're scored on wins, saves, strikeouts, ERA, and WHIP. So those are the 10 categories that you're assigned for. If you come in first place for a category, you have 12 points, second, 11, descending down. And then they'll take your cumulative total of points. That's the standings. So that's a basic summary of, you know, what's going on here. So yeah, I mean, you could see Daniel, we are big Shane Bieber guys. Shane Bieber is an elite pitcher. Shout out to Shane Bieber. That guy is, you know, healthy. He's top 3. You know, he's unbelievable. So when you're talking about your team, your staples of the rotation, just to start, Shane Bieber, Robbie Ray, as we mentioned yesterday, Max Fried. There you go. That's the pillar of the rotation here, which about as good as a 1, 2, 3 punches you can draw it up to be, man. It's up there, you know.
Especially if you look at it economically, right? I mean, forget the fact that I got Max Fried for $13 yesterday, which is insane. Robbie Ray I got for 23. Bieber I ended up paying a bit more, 38. But these are not guys who are going to cost you, you know, mid to upper 40s. Especially last year when DeGrom was healthy and things like that. I mean, you can build a 1, 2, 3 and still have a lot of money to play with, and you're sitting pretty. And for me so far, but look, like you said, you know what I think. After that, I'm taking a risk, man. I'm counting on a 24-year-old Ian Anderson, who I'm a big fan, but as my number 4, I'm not crazy about it, because then you got to look at your number 5 and 6. Adam Wainwright, Ranger Suarez. This is going to be his 2nd year in the rotation, pitched half a season in the rotation, came up through the bullpen in Philly. Adam Wainwright's 39 years old. The reason I say you got to be 4 deep is because what if Robbie Ray goes down?
100%.
What if he has regression? Maybe he's healthy, but he won the AL Cy Young this year, and maybe that was just, you know, a bit of a mirage or his peak, and he's just not going to replicate that again. What if Shane Bieber's shoulder is not, you know, as healed as we all hope and think it is, according to him in Cleveland? What if Max Fried has regression, or he ends up with blister problems, which has been a problem for him in his career. I mean, you have to have some contingencies. And I look at my rotation, and 3 deep, everything's got to go right, and that's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how much can Wainwright do it again? I mean, there's questions there, but I think the bigger question for you both, you and I, is bullpen, obviously.
Absolutely.
Like Romano, it's his first time, man. It's the first go around on the merry-go-round. I mean, in terms of Toronto's closer, though, it's his role to lose. I don't see anybody else in the bullpen that's going to challenge him for that position. Toronto's arguably a top 5 team in the game. They're going to get a lot of wins. They're going to be in a lot of position to get saves. It's a safe pick. Matt
but
Barnes.
He doesn't have the track record of the other elite closers. Last year was his first year, and he wasn't even penciled in as the closer. It was Julian Merriweather who was lost for the season. So Romano stepped in. He was electric, no doubt. But the question is, can he do it again?
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, 100%. Same thing in Boston, man. I mean, Matt Barnes, he was all-star last year for the first time, electric in the first half, wheels fell off. Second half, guy didn't even make the postseason roster. They said, sorry, man.
Yeah, he ran out of gas.
Hang it up for the season, and you can't fault the guy coming off a COVID year. But
I'll say this about Barnes. Here's something that I've always found interesting about closers and pitchers when you look at them. How much of a discrepancy is there between their WHIP and ERA? Right? If you see a bit of an inflated ERA, well, okay, you think to yourself, all right, well, the WHIP is probably going to be high too. But when you look at Barnes, look at the strikeouts per 9. 84 strikeouts in 55 innings, a 112 WHIP in those 55 innings. That ERA shows you that he had some outings where he got busted in the teeth. But that WHIP is pretty darn good for a guy who, I mean, let's be honest, pitching in the American League East and Fenway Park, even with his struggles, that tells you that before the bleep hit the fan, that WHIP was probably, I don't know, mid 105, 106, something like that, probably, if not lower.
Oh, yeah.
That ERA, I mean, it tells you his ERA was a lot lower. It was a few bad outings when he just went into meltdown mode. So if he regains it, which I think he will, he's a darn good pitcher. But again, there are question marks.
I mean, I think the biggest question of all is it his job. I think that's the biggest question. If the spring training plays out and the start of the year plays out, and he doesn't come away with the closer job in Boston,
this is what's important, right? We did our draft early. There's no question about it. We're still a little less than 3 weeks away in this abbreviated spring training. If Brenden, click on his stat sheet. How much did I buy him for? Go to player history. $6. If this was later in spring training and Matt Barnes has been anointed the Red Sox closer,
he's going.
There would be a 1. There would be a 1 next to that 6.
Absolutely.
Right. So I would not have gotten him for $6. I caught a break there, but if it said that he's not the closer, there's probably a 0 there instead. He's not getting drafted. So there's a risk, but you take an educated gamble. But he also became a product of circumstance. I didn't have the money for other closers because I made other sacrifices.
No, you did have money for other closers. That's the thing.
I did. That's the thing. Look, this is the interesting thing about an auction draft. Closers, towards the end of the draft, when people are running low on fumes with their bank accounts, but nonetheless have some money saved, they're saving them for closers. And what's going to happen is you're going to have price inflation because it's basically supply and demand. Every closer who goes off the block makes the next one more valuable. And you're going to have closers going for prices that simply don't justify, the value. So
this is the full board. So essentially, I mean, you can see here, like things are getting down there, right? Where picks 100. People start to go, I want to see. Glacius went for 19.
Oh yeah,
Kenley Jansen, there it is,
$25. I was bidding on
$25. I bought Hendricks for 27. Hendricks for 27. So, Edwin
right
Diaz,
there, Edwin Diaz, $16. He lost his closer's job last year for a while. He got lit up. He was all over the place.
We're not Edwin Diaz fans here. Wish the guy all the luck in the world. I just don't.
I'll buy him for $8. But that's the thing.
I would even go 12 or 13, but I just don't think the guy was built for New York myself, personally, But yeah, I mean, Kittredge, in hindsight, that was probably a pretty good deal.
Ryan Presley, $18. Again, I mean, he's an elite closer, but
paid 17 for Romano.
Paid 17 for Romano. Blake Trinan went for 20,
Bednar.
and he's not even confirmed.
Bednar.
I mean, give me a break.
No, Trinan, I'm on the Trinan train. Dan's not.
Well, listen. When the Dodgers say they're going to have a committee, I mean, I'm not gonna say they're lying through their teeth, but it's possible. I don't think they're trying to deke out fantasy managers, but
Scott Barlow, we'll 10, see. Lou Trevino, 10. Jake McGee, 8. So that's
look at Camilo Duvall, right? Went for $9.
Neither of these guys are even confirmed as the closer.
Right, and most likely it's going to be a committee as well, because what happens is a lot of teams want to see who's the guy who becomes that person you really have the most trust in. So you may go 2 months in and they're playing, musical chairs in San Francisco, and I in LA quite possibly, and in other places up in Seattle. I mean, there's just, the closer has become an endangered species.
Yes.
In baseball, there are very few guys who are the guy who, if they have some bad outings, the manager isn't going to blink. And the prices shouldn't say justify, they reflect that reality.
Saves is a whole category, it's there for a reason,
It is.
And especially to have a guy who's going to help you in these three as well. That's the key,
I'll tell you why though, Brendan. I think starting pitching, if you go starting pitching, you can weather the storm a bit more with relievers. Is that if you have the right starting pitchers, they can absorb some of the rough seas that you will get out of a bullpen that isn't, elite. Matt Barnes, if he has some bad outings, well, that's why Shane Bieber and Max Fried are there.
Of course, that is the relationship between it. Absolutely. Like if you're going to go all bullpen, which you'll see my team, you can't
screw around.
Yeah,
you can't screw around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll pivot to the offense here. I mean, just to wrap up things here, I mean, again, question mark there, but overall though, I do think that this category, you will salvage the points from it based on these two pickups here, which is what's important.
And real quick, you gotta, we'll get into waivers at another time or another segment.
Absolutely.
But if you're on your toes and you're not asleep at the wheel, you will be you are opportunistic. Opportunity will present itself in the bullpen. I promise.
I mean, I think it's really hard to come out with a team that's completely bulletproof out of the draft. Every team is going to be a work in process. Whatever, we're going to move on from that. Work in progress. There you go. But yeah, I mean, essentially, we'll move out of the offense here. I mean, basically, you're an Atlanta Brave. That's what it comes down to. You're rolling with the Braves. I mean, you do have the best player in the game. When he comes back and when he's healthy, that's going to be huge for your team. Obviously we highlighted this guy yesterday. He's going to carry you from a power standpoint. I do believe that this guy is going to park at least 20. He's probably going to. I think that average projection is very low for him. I think he's going to.
Yeah, it's not even a projection. Well, those are his numbers from last year. Yeah. Which, remember, he missed significant time.
Surgery.
Right. He had a broken thumb, and I'll say this about Travis d'Arnaud: he was still playing with a broken thumb in the World Series.
Yeah.
And remember, Brendan, he smacked like 2 home runs. I believe
the guy, he's good, man.
He's a gamer. He's a gamer. I got him for what, $1. So
really, the question with him is his whole career has been health. So, but if he's on the field, he's going to perform. So, definitely solid in the catch position. Definitely a bounce back candidate there.
Question mark. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely a question mark. We'll see. But this guy has really come down to be the X factor of the team.
Absolutely.
We discussed it earlier. I mean, the reality is those stolen bases that this guy has to, come out with are going to be crucial. Let me see if I can see his projected stats here. I don't think so, but
you know what? Here, close that out. Go up a little bit.
Projected
stats.
Yeah. So 48 stolen bases. I mean,
and mind you, that's only in 437 games. They're assuming that if he misses a third of the season, he's still going to steal 50 bags.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, this guy's going to carry you in one category because based on what our experience is, you need anywhere from I'd say like 110 to 120 steals to win that category.
Yes.
Be
If
very
you want to
competitive
win.
in it. So, I mean, essentially this guy is almost half of that, dude. So, and how much can you count on this? I do think Acuna will grab 13. I think that once July's, August, September rolls around, maybe the wheels will come off a little bit, but yeah, Adolis, hopefully he's going to steal a little bit, but yeah, this guy is just such a massive X factor for your team and a lot of teams out there in the fantasy landscape. I mean, he's a very interesting enigma that's out there in the draft.
I think, listen, I paid a lot for him, $28, but here's something to point out. If you go starting pitching in a draft, whether it's, particularly in a snake draft, and you have to go get your starters early because if you screw around and you wait, they will not be there. Those guys you trust. If you do that, you're not getting speed. I can tell you that right now. The one stat, I would say the most precious stat, right? The most difficult stat to find, maybe even more than saves, are stolen bases. To really get that out of hitters who are going to sink you.
I was going to say, I wouldn't say tough to find where they're not going to sacrifice for something else. Exactly like you just said.
And usually it's not just sacrifice for something else. You're sacrificing in multiple categories.
Absolutely.
Just for one category. I mean, let me ask you, Brenden, is a closer, is somebody who's going to get you 15 or 20 saves worth it if he's going to get, shelled and have a 125 whip and a 4.12 ERA? I mean, is that worth it?
Right.
No, it's more obvious because those high numbers are, optically clear. But when you say, okay, well, I'll get this guy and he's going to steal, look at like a Miles Straw, he's going to lead off for the Indians. He may swipe 30 bags, but he's Miles Straw, and he's playing in the Indians lineup, and he's just not going to justify value in any other category.
Yeah, like he has. If you're gonna go that route, like he has to be the last utility player you slot in. It's not like a guy you can bank on. Like if you only have four guys in your offense drafted and you slap them in there, absolutely not.
If you have everything else kind of taken care of in your offense, you can say, all right, Miles, just steal from me, nothing else matters, and then it's okay. But likely that's not going to be the case.
I just did the math. You're slated at 103 steals up to Acuna. I didn't even count Senzel. We're just assuming that you're going to play a lot of these guys over him. But obviously injuries are going to happen. People are not going to be in the lineup, so you have to factor them in to some degree. So
I'll say this:
106.
Real sneaky tip, guys. Nick Senzel is penciled in to be the starting center fielder and leadoff hitter for the Cincinnati Reds.
That's some good.
That lineup is going to go Senzel, Jonathan India, homered yesterday, National League Rookie of the Year, and Joey Votto. So that 1-2-3 in Cincinnati, in that little ballpark, I know they've lost Suarez, I know they've lost Winker, but they still have sticks, and they've lost Castellanos. The fact that they play in that little ballpark where there's really not much pitching outside of Milwaukee in that division, they're going to score runs. This was the number 4 overall pick a few years ago. Issue's been health. He looks good. If he's healthy, Brenden, he's going to score 80 to 90. He's going to pop 20. He's going to steal 20. So I may integrate him, but he's somebody, folks, if you can get him on your team, get him on your team. I'm telling you, do it now, because 2 weeks from now, he's not going to be on waivers. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially that's the rundown on Daniel's team. I mean, I think it's you have the pillars there from a power standpoint with, these guys. We're both Eddie Rosario fans. AJ Pollock, we highlighted that yesterday, definitely a good guy. There's enough foundational pieces for you here to head into the season. A couple tweaks on waivers here, maybe finding one big bet here, either through a trade or waivers, and you have a very serious chance.
I'll say this. My biggest weakness on offense is batting average.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm willing
to
if you go starting pitching heavy, you're not going to dominate all 5 offensive categories. So you can see here, folks, I focused on power. I focus on stolen bases and kind of a mix between runs and RBIs. I think I'll score, especially when Acuna comes back, I'll score enough runs to be competitive there. I will drive in enough runs, but particularly where I will lead is home runs, stolen bases, my batting average, to the wind. I can live with that then.
I'll say even runs, I'm a little bit concerned. You have a lot of cleanup hitters here in offenses that are questionable, but we'll see.
Look, we'll see. Segura, he's going to lead off for Philly. If Senzel's the guy, no, there's no question. Runs, yeah.
I'm just saying comparatively,
comparatively. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But yeah, I mean, that's it. That's a wrap on it. So let you look at it one more time, and I guess we'll dive into my team here. So obviously, first thing that stands out is this needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, this needs to be addressed. That's probably one of the only spots that got ignored. But if you black that out, I mean, we go Jose Abreu, Trey Turner, Arenado, Anderson, Robert, Springer, Meadows, Baez, Gallo, Rizzo, Torres. So I invested a lot of money in the offense, Dan.
Yeah, I did the math. You invested out of a $260 budget, $200 in your offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we're riding the White Sox wave. Even though I'm a Tigers fan, big Tigers guy, I'm not one of those guys that's like huge into rivalries. Just for fuck the White Sox. No, it does. Like it's. I'm a fan of the strategy and the way that they've gone about it, and you can't deny they've built an incredible team, Daniel. I think that the White Sox are a top 5 team overall in the game, and I think the big X factor on my team is this guy right here. That is really, I bought him for 37. That's a huge investment on an offensive player, especially when there's some guys out there that are going for 42 to 47 that are, you throw an extra $10 at it, you're right there. So yeah, I mean, but just having the Robert Anderson Abreu stack on the White Sox I felt like it was important to come out with that. So yeah.
Listen, I think Robert, there is some, I don't want to say question marks, but curiosity. And when I say curiosity, it's a curiosity of ceiling. Like, how good can this guy really be? Because really, he's got all the tools. Everything. He's got all the ability in the world. Last year, it's unfortunate he had that hip thing, but remember, you cut him on a team. Yeah, I even said to you, get him back, put him on your DL.
Well, last year, same thing with basketball. This year, I know a lot of guys had remorse. I cut Kyrie Irving in the league because the reality is with COVID last year in baseball, and then on top of just regular injuries, you have to make tough decisions. So basketball, there was entire rosters out there. I sent you screenshots where you're not just going to cut Draymond Green or something like that. You're not just going to cut, Anthony Davis because he's injured and he's going to be coming back because everyone else on your team has COVID. So, tough decisions have to be made, but as the season goes along, eventually you're going to have to make those tough decisions in it. When a writer says, yeah, Luis Robert's out for the rest of the year, you know what I mean? And you listen to that. I guess that's a big asterisk. Never listen to the Yahoo writers. Love those guys. Tough job. But some bad advice comes across the bench.
Well, yeah. To continue that, he came back and he was on fire. Phenomenal. And with the whole offseason to rest and recuperate, recovery, strengthen condition, I expect him to have a big year. He's worth the money. He's your biggest investment, correct? Or second biggest after Trey Turner. Mm-hmm. But listen, this guy has a higher ceiling in some ways than Trey Turner potentially. That's how good he is. That's how good he is.
Yeah, let's go to the projected stats. So, I mean, he's slated for 20. I think I have a fairly athletic team across the board. I think I'll be very competitive in steals.
Absolutely.
Led by the man himself, Trey Turner. The man, the myth.
I mean, listen, he's the best right now with Tatis, on the IL to open the season for 3 months.
Clear cut number.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have even said Trey Turner is the clear-cut pick before that. Well, that injury cemented that. He's the best player on board, gives you excellence in all 5 categories. No question. Mm-hmm. No question. Worth every penny.
Absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, this is how things shaped out. I mean, I think that this is really going to be the biggest thing in figuring out, the pitching staff. So I'm a big believer in the bullpen. I'm a bullpen strategy guy. So there's a couple different methodologies in which people go about building their pitching rotations in fantasy. Traditional, like Daniel, you have a couple closers, couple starters. There's occasionally people punt on saves, man. It's a thing. People sometimes.
I've seen
it. They say I'm a starter only guy. Sometimes there's a one true ace. We'll draft a Shane Bieber, or Walker Buehler, or Corbin Burns, and then go everybody in the bullpen after that. That's a very formidable strategy. And then there's a strategy, hey, you just go all bullpen. You go after saves, you go after ERA, you go after WHIP. And that's one of my favorite strategies because last year was a perfect example. That if you do that and you're going for first place, you have to perform on offense. You just have to. Last year on my team, I had Juan Soto, I had Bryce Harper, I had Tatis, all spent multiple stints on the IL, and that there was times where I was concerned about the offense throughout the year. So I pivoted, I started streaming pitchers. I made a trade for Corbin Burns. I shipped Aroldis Chapman and someone else off for Corbin Burns, and that ended up being the worst trade of that guy's career. And Corbin Burns helped me kind of rein it in. I got Robbie Ray off waivers, which arguably was the waiver pickup of the year. And those two guys kind of carried me into relevance. And that's one of the things that I like about the bullpen strategy is it gives you the backdoor pivot. If things start to go really wrong throughout the season, they will. Just like in the draft. We both had plans in place. Our teams did not come out like the plans that we went into the draft about, but yeah, I think just having that option of flexibility is good. And you know what? If things go well on offense and you only need to chase those three categories, we were kind of talking about it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, let's just contextualize that for everybody. With 10 categories, your goal, if you're going on the bats and bullpen strategy, is to dominate an 8, right? Like you're doing this because you're saying on the pitching front, hey, look, if I get elite closers, I'm going to lead in saves. That's 12 points. I'm going to lead, ideally, then an ERA and WHIP. That's 36 points now. And if I put, the overwhelming majority of my money into offense, I should, finish first, second, or third in each offensive category. Just average it out, right? Say, you finish second place in each. That's 11 per, right? That's 55 points, right? 55 plus 36 gets you what? 87 points?
91.
No, sorry, not 91, right? So, no, 55 plus 36. 86 points. And you're the math guy. So, or am I wrong? I'm wrong. So there you go. There you go. See, he's the math guy. He's the math guy. So, there you go. The point being is that
it gives you a great chance to finish first.
90 is the sweet spot, right? Absolutely. In baseball, I've said this to Brenden, 90 is the holy number, right? 90 wins to a division, 90 feet between first and home. 90 wins, 90 points, you should finish in first place. It's a pretty sound strategy, really, because you've got so many. Look at how many offensive studs you have. If one goes down, you're not necessarily sunk. The reality, however, is that in an auction draft, stuff can go crazy, and we look at your team, and there's just not enough obvious elite closers. You got one, and this is where like Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the teeth, and we both got punched in the teeth yesterday because closers were going for millions of dollars, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I knew ahead of time I wasn't going to have money to play in that pool. I mean, I'm even surprised that Hendricks is on my team right now. To be honest with you, I just, this is the way the draft went. Mike Trout, we talked about him yesterday, went for 47. That's more than I had slated at the time, especially when you go after a guy like Trey Turner. You got to be judicious about it. I could have maybe done that, but that wasn't the mindset that I went into the draft to do. Like, I've done that before, like last year. I mean, dude, what did I pay for Fernando last year? 60 something. I think it was 60 something, and then I paid 50 something for Juan Soto. I paid, 39 for Bryce Harper. I paid $9 for Carlos Correa. I paid $8 for Will Smith. After that, there's not a lot left. You know what I mean? So
yeah, well, look, I think you also went in with a mentality that you were gonna peg off, right? Snipe off all potential options for at least two teams' bullpens that it sounds like are going to have committees or are at this point undetermined. And I think you accomplished that goal. Seattle, and San Diego.
It wasn't necessarily the teams that you would anticipate. Like San Francisco's a bullpen that intrigues me. Tampa, I do have questions about it this year. They were so elite last year. The names don't jump off the page at you, when you read the guys off from Tampa's bullpen, but they're there. New York, by the numbers last year, the Yankees specifically, they had a really, really good bullpen. I think they had the second best bullpen ERA in the game last year, but Chapman is just such an enigma. He's just such an interesting interesting guy. I mean, if you go that route, you definitely have to get Wise to go to Chang Green.
Also look,
he's going to cost a lot of money as well.
You got arguably right, like we say about Hader and Hendricks, 1A and 1B, right? Mm-hmm. These are the two best, clear cut by a mile, best closers in baseball, right? So that is a huge pillar with putting $200, right, into your offense, and then 25 for Hendricks. That leaves you right with $35. See, I got that math right, Brenden. Finally, $35 doesn't really give you that many options. No. So you I think you did the right thing getting two committees. And then what's going to happen is either before spring training or probably relatively soon, it's going to become clear who's the guy. And if it's all three, hey, I guess that's where you're stuck with that roster space. But you're still going to accumulate those saves.
Well, not only that, but again, when we've had discussions about this, it matters what three. You can't go to the Chicago Cubs and say, I'm going to get David Robertson, whatever clowns are in that bullpen. You can't do that. That's how you sink yourself. If you chase the Colorado Rockies closer, if you chase the Chicago Cubs closer, I mean, if you chase some of these bullpens are really bad. Like, you cannot mess around with something like that. Trying to dumpster dive per se. Daniel's gotten burned by it. I've been burned by it. Everyone's been burned by doing something like that. So, the reality is, and also why the bullpen strategy makes sense. Like, if you just go down the line and say that these projections are accurate, like Seattle's bullpen by the numbers they had, I think, let me look it up. They had a phenomenal bullpen last year. Let's see.
No, they were very, very good. No doubt about it.
So let me see, 2021 bullpen stats. Here we go. So the LA Dodgers led the MLB with a 2.16 bullpen ERA last year. Makes sense. We've got a lot of horses in that bullpen. Houston Astros, surprising name, 3.07. Atlanta, 3.11. And then you go Milwaukee, New York Yankees, San Francisco. Hold on. No, this is playoffs, excuse me.
Yeah, that sounded like the playoffs.
Yeah, so, okay, this is the true one. So San Francisco, 2.99. Great bullpen. Then LA Dodgers, Tampa Bay, New York, San Diego, Cleveland, Miami, Seattle. So Seattle's in the top 10 at a 3.88 bullpen ERA. But the thing that you have to keep in mind, like, if you're going off those stats, you're not going to get the guys that are blowing that up. Like, look at these guys' ERAs. Like, if we go off the last year's stats, 2.0 ERA, 1.02 whip, 3.06, 1.02. These are not even fielding all three of these guys. They're not going to hurt you. That's 150 innings. That's an elite starter right there. Especially when you look at the K rates that these guys are putting up. Second round, not so much, but these guys right here, I mean,
Paul Sewald. Yep. Diego Castillo.
Absolutely. So, fielding those guys, they're not going to hurt you for what you're going after. And that's the key. Yep. That is absolutely the key. Especially, I mean, if you take the cumulative stats of last year, this bullpen, it was absolutely impeccable. And, and this guy's a flyer. Like, take these guys out of it. Like, I'm probably not going to throw Pierce Johnson out there until I have to see with my own eyes. Like, I don't think I've ever watched this guy. Maybe one time I watched this guy pitch in real life. I know this guy has it. He had an outing last year where he gave up I think he gave up 6 earned runs.
No, he's got the stuff, man. He's got the stuff. No doubt. I'm no worries.
If you take what it'll do is the standings will just combine your whole staff. But if you just take this, I think that I relatively accomplished the goal with what little money I had.
I think so too. And I think just a word right on Casey Mize and Michael Kopech, like why the bullpen strategy has a lot of value beyond just, I think, the clarity and stability of elite relievers is that it gives you roster flexibility where you can put in Mize and Kopech and say, all right, what are these guys? What are they all about? Right? Is this the year Casey Mize, really shows his talent, and Michael Kopech similarly, he's in the rotation. I mean, these are top stud draft picks, prospects. If both these guys are dealing, now you've got somebody giving you some extra strikeouts, some extra wins, and rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to take my 1 point for sitting in the basement for wins and strikeouts. Suddenly you start to get on that escalator, right?
And
maybe
you go for
that elevator, and you start accumulating some points, and then with the elite relievers, with the elite strikeout rates, suddenly you say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm doing well on saves. I can deal a closer and try to get a good starter and try to just snipe some more points, because that's what you want to do. Every point matters, and this gives you, I mean, the opportunity to rotate some guys into your pitching staff and say who's a keeper, who's going to stick.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, if Dinelson Lamet comes away with the closer job in San Diego, these two
Suarez
guys
Johnson gone,
just like that. And even if I wanted to do something like
two roster spots open up.
Yeah, like if I wanted to add a bullpen arm here, this guy's got starting pitching eligibility slapped there, and stay true to the strategy, it's done.
It's just, you have so much flexibility with this strategy. You know, it really, I think, I really do think, yeah, it is the most safe, secure, tried, you know, and tested model that we've come up with. Part of the reason I wanted to do starting pitching is to contrast it to your team. You know, we can show people, okay, look, you can clearly see the differences, right? Because you put $200 there, and I made a more of a balanced team. I wanted, my goal going into that draft was to not put 200 in my pitching staff, but probably like 180. You know, I ended up putting 125 into my pitching and 135 into my offense, and the drafting, an auction draft can kind of screw you up. But you know, here I think for the most part, you accomplished what you set out to do from a strategic standpoint. I think, look, ideally, you would have liked to have had one more clear-cut closer, right, to pair with Hendricks, but that's the draft, right?
Yeah.
You didn't expect Nolan Arenado for $13.
Right.
That's a closer right there, but you have to go grab him. That's just too good of a value for a team that's built on offense.
Absolutely. Not only that, but I do think it also is important. And even that's why maybe like riding all three of these guys for this season, because same thing with these two. The days that Hendricks aren't going to get the save opportunity because maybe he pitched 2 days in a row, that's where having the cuff. I'm big on that. If you're drafting Hader, you better get Devin Williams. If you're drafting Kenley Jansen, you better get Will Smith. You have to, because not only if Liam Hendricks gets hurt and goes on the IL for an extended period of time, and he's your only guy there, you are absolutely screwed. You are absolutely screwed, because this is a pillar of your team, whether you like it or not. Even though he's a relief pitcher, he's throwing 70 innings. This is what matters. This is why you drafted him right here. This stuff is gravy on top if he can do that again. Right here is why you drafted him. If he goes down and you don't have this behind him, you absolutely screwed yourself. 100%.
I totally agree.
The most foolish thing you could do, you know.
I totally agree. Absolutely.
If you're sticking to this strategy specifically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, because listen, I mean, you may have a devastating injury to Hendricks, and then he's done for the year. Well, Craig Kimbrell, you're up. So, yeah, I think the point's made. I think anybody listening to this, it should be now like obviously clear why one would do this strategy and how to do it. And then again, looking at your offense, let's go back up to your sticks. I mean, you look at this offense. I told you that this morning. I mean, we're not going to show you every team in the league, but I'll just take my word for it. We can show you a few maybe, but this is the best offense in the league. I've looked at every team, including my own, 1 through 12. If you look at this offense, you're going to get stolen bases, a ton of them, between Turner, Anderson, Robert, Baez. Meadow will swipe a few. Springer can swipe some, you know, if he's fully healthy, which, you know, it sounds like he is. You know, are these the projections or are these the stats from last year?
These are the stats from last year. So I can
show the projections. Show the projections. All right, so you see that right there: 34 for Turner, 19 for Anderson, 20 for Robert, 14 for Baez. Just on those 4 guys alone, how many stolen bases? 89. Okay, there you go. And then you're going to get some sprinkled in. Meadows 7. Gallo can steal a little bit, right? So, yeah, I mean, right there, you can see you're going to run. You're off to the races. Your batting averages very strong. Trey Turner probably may win the batting title this year with all the sluggers he has around him. Anderson is a batting champion. Robert should hit around 300. Springer probably 270 to 280. Meadows is going to hit better than 249. He's a better hitter than that. Baez hit 300 essentially with the Mets when he came back. He's a better hitter than 250. Your batting average is going to be very competitive. Abreu will hit 270 to 280. Your power numbers, clearly, you've got a ton of it. I did the math. I mean, conservatively, you should hit 300 plus home runs. You just should. And 300 is kind of the golden number to win your league in home runs, at least. And then runs scored. I mean, look, I'm big on the leadoff man. You know, they're the guys who are going to score the most runs on any team. You've got the leadoff man essentially for the Dodgers, or at least the 1, 2, 3. And with the end, you know, the DH now in the NL, I mean, it's just a merry-go-round, merry-go-round of runs being scored. You've got the leadoff man for the White Sox,
the Blue Jays. George Springer is the leader. Yeah.
There you go. Probably the Blue Jays. You know, we'll see where Baez hits, but yeah, I mean, all 5 offensive categories, you should finish no worse than 3rd place. No worse. You know,
I think so too.
And some of those you'll probably outright win and get the full 12 points. So, yeah, I mean, you combine that offensive dominance with 3 pitching stats, even if you finish bottom of the barrel, right? Remember when we did that 93 points? Was it 91 or 93? 91 points, right? We didn't even count the 1 point for wins for finishing the last and the 1 point for strikeouts for finishing in last, which you're probably, you know, not going to do if you start integrating in some starting pitchers like, I mean, you know, Copeland or Mize that you like.
If I replace these 2 guys with starters, I have 4 starters in a bullpen. You know,
and the other thing about the bullpen is if you get off to a hot start with your bullpen and you got guys just, you know, shutting down offenses in that 1 inning that they pitch, you're going to make a bulk work for yourself of innings where your ERA and WHIP are so low that they can absorb maybe taking a chance or 2 on some streams or some pitchers that you think, you know, are worth having on your roster and seeing, okay, what is this guy about? You know, can he get it done? So it just gives you a lot of, you know, it gives you the room and the possibility for creativity and other possibilities. So, yeah, I mean, I just think that, for anybody, again, listening to this or looking at this now, in an ideal world, it would have, you know, like 3 clear-cut closers. But you can't knock Brenden because that offense is bulletproof, right? That was the decision you decided to make, that I'm going to make a bulletproof offense where there's really no question marks, and I'm going to kind of have these little committees and see who is the guy, right, left standing, right, once the bell rings in that bullpen, and then I'll play around with it. So, yeah, if you can't, because this is an auction draft, you only have so much money. If you decide, you know, I'm going to spend all my money on bats, and then I'm going to get one solid monster like Liam Hendricks, well, you're just not going to have the money to have Rafael Iglesias as well and Kenley Jansen as well. I mean, there's the limit there, right? So you do the next best thing. What is that? Grab those bulk committees and then let the dust settle.
Exactly.
On good teams. Teams. Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I'd say I give myself a B+. I think, you know, it's came out fair. I just, San Diego's a wild card, man. That bullpen, who knows? You know, I do think I'll grab the guy. I do think one of these guys are going to come away with that role. You know, the question is how elite are they as a pitcher? You know, that's the one thing.
I mean, Robert Suarez is an interesting name. The dude was pitching in Japan the last 2 years. He got like a 2-year contract with San Diego. He's a heavy ground ball pitcher, and from listening to an interview with Bob Melvin, he seemed to indicate that that's the kind of guy, Brenden, you would bring in at like any point in the game when you need that double play, right? And that is what a ground ball pitcher, especially coming out of the bullpen, is ideal for, right? Somebody who's going to come in there and get that ground ball, get that double play, and, you know, just shut off that fire. So if I had to put my money on it, we'll find out in a few weeks, right? We'll have this conversation again. I think it's going to be Dinelson Lamet. But, you know, if it's not and I'm wrong and it's Pierce Johnson, guess what? You got him too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, you know, this helped you guys seeing these are real teams, it's a real league, like it was a real draft. It's not a mock draft or anything like that. You know,
hopefully scroll up, show people that we're putting our money where our mouth is. If you go to league and you go to prizes. Yep. $1,500, folks, or really 1,250.
Mhm.
That's how much Brenden would win if he comes in first place. Obviously, you know, he's not gonna, you know, come in first place because I'm here. But you know, there you go, 900
Mhm.
bucks. So he'll get his money
Absolutely.
back and then some. So yeah, I mean, this is the real deal, man. We're all about it. And you know, 6 months from now or 7 months from now, when baseball season's over, the regular season, you know, we'll see. Were we full of crap, or did we win money? And hopefully, did we help you win some money?
Let us know in the comments below. Leave a like. Feel free to subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next one.